Hello, everybody. For those of you who like to show up just a little bit early, I am just getting the slide presentation all set. I believe it's all shared. And we'll get started just on time here, just in a few minutes. Hello, everybody who just joined. It's going to be a full workshop today. There is about 100 people who registered for today, and it caps at 100. So it's great that everybody joined here a little early. And we will get started right at 4 o'clock. For those of you who are joining and have not been on one of these workshops in the past, let me go ahead and turn on the chat settings. Okay. So you can either enter a question through chat, and I believe there's one other way you can ask questions as far as the Q&A. So either way, I'll be monitoring that. What I'll typically do is go through the presentation. It's about 45 minutes long, and then I'll come back and answer any questions. So if I don't stop going through the presentation, it's because I try to make sure that I get the 45 minutes in. And trust me, for those of you who've been on this workshop, know that I can talk for about 2 hours. So don't want to do that to anybody and miss something at the end. So we want to go ahead and go through the material, and then we'll come back and answer any questions that somebody might have. Um, we will get started here in 3 minutes. All right, we're going to get started here in just a minute. First off, I want to congratulate all of you that are basically leaving your district this year and retiring. Uh, so I know it's a big time for a lot of you. We still have some folks on here who are looking to retire over the next couple of years. We'll talk a little about that tonight. But yeah, if you're retiring now, and you are under 65, unfortunately, healthcare has been almost doubled. So we'll talk a little about this during the presentation. But other than that, everything is good. And we'll talk about the workbook and everything as well. If you have questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A or also in the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer that. There are 90 some people who are registered for the event. So we'll have a bunch of people join in between now and 4:03. Just happens every time. I see there about half of the folks that on this call tonight are repeats. So today, some of the information has changed just slightly. So for a lot of this, it'll be a review. For some of you who have not been on any of these calls in the past, we're just going to hit the top five things you need to do as you get ready to retire, or if you're retiring now, some of the things that you should put in order. Um, we'll talk about, the guide as well, because that's really kind of a workbook that says, okay, do this, do this, do this, do this. And if you are yet to retire, it has different time frames in there that you just write them in there on your calendar. Do this 3 months in advance, do this. And it helps you kind of stay organized, and also, you might have questions as to how it all happens. More than happy to go through that as well. Um, I only had one person who had an issue logging in, so I'm hoping that everything, unlike last week, that everything works fine. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this. Tonight, if you are joining us, it is on the top five issues that educators face. My name's Terry Martine. I've been doing this for over 2 decades and working with different educators throughout the state, primarily through FRS, although we do have some firefighters and police officers also in FRS. Tonight is geared for educators. Okay, so hopefully we don't have any of those folks on. Some of this information is not quite accurate for them, so let me know. We'll also cover the tax guide. Actually, let's go ahead and jump over that. Everybody that's on this call today gets the free workbook for retiring, educators. And what it does is think of it as just kind of an ABC guide to get you organized to retire. Um, the guide is designed to let you know that these are some of the things that you should be made aware of or go ahead and make plans to do. But it is not going to step you through A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way through and be able to give you concrete guidance because although some of you might become clients of mine, all of you are not clients of mine. And so unless I talk to somebody, I'm restricted as to what I can say. Um, and also make it accurate so that if somebody watches this video a year from now, they don't fall into any traps that could be avoided, or the laws change and everything changes year to year. Heck, sometimes it changes 6 months to 6 months. So just so you know, I am a financial advisor. I've been doing this a while, and everybody gets this as a complimentary guide. So if somebody is not on the call and you want them to get the guide, just give them a link. It's no issue. They can download this. And so what I've been doing is providing this every year. Um, and that way you always stay accurate, or I stay accurate with the guide, and also you can be a little bit more prepared. All right. So again, this is just for you to go through. It's about 20 pages long, so it does have some meat on it. But everybody gets this as an email, and you just click on the email and it takes you over, and you can download it then. All right. Disclosures. So before I get into all of my presentation, I need to let everybody know I am not an attorney. I am a financial advisor. I do not work for Florida retirement system. I have helped I have about 1,000 clients. I have helped quite a few people through FRS and help retire. But I also will talk a little bit about investments here. Oh, I should back up. So everybody that's watching this today also gets a copy of the recording. So if you need to take notes or you have a question about something, feel free to go back in and view this. It is being recorded on YouTube. And some of this will be a little bit tax based. I'm not a CPA. I did tax preparation. So before you take any of this, this is advice, general advice. It could not be or not pertinent to you, but I'll illustrate when it comes up. Um, all right, so talk a little about pension benefits, health insurance. That's a big one that's changed a lot this year. I want to caution everybody about that. Social Security, retirement savings, and some of the things, practical things you can do to lower your taxes in 2026. Okay. When we get to that section, I'll cover some of the details with that, but this could single-handedly save you a lot of money in retirement, um, just because you can lower your taxes by using certain types of accounts, right? And when I get there, it'll be more apparent. All right, so let's jump over for pension benefits. This is the number one concern for you and everybody that's retiring on a fixed budget. Okay. So, this is the number one problem you have to overcome in retirement. And that's the fact that the US has printed or is in debt just shy of $40 trillion. Dollars. And that's a lot of money, and nobody really can wrap their head around how much money that really is. But it's about a hundred and some thousand dollars per US citizen. And what it does is it chokes as you get money when you retire, it chokes off the amount or your purchasing power. And we call that inflation, but you should just be thinking of it as eroding your retirement. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. But this is the single biggest problem. Okay. So we've got $40 trillion in debt, roughly. How do you protect yourself from this? So let me take a step back. So the nation as a whole has three ways of getting out of this. Okay, there's three ways to solve this $38 trillion problem. The first option is to just default. Right? We've issued all this credit or bonds, IOUs, whatever you want to call them, and we could just simply say, you know what, we're not going to pay those anymore. Um, there's a couple examples here at the bottom. Argentina did it, Russia did it, Greece did it in 2012. So that is not good. We as a nation are not going to do that. So you don't have to worry about that one. The austerity and fiscal adjustment just means that. It means that we're going to be good stewards of the money. And you know what? We're going to balance the budget. We're going to say, okay, well, we owe this and we take in X and we're not going to go over that line. Um, Clinton was the only president that was able to do that in recent history. And to be honest with you, Clinton wouldn't have done it if he knew that he could spend more either. So every president is guilty of this. Doesn't matter if you're left or right. Every single president historically has just kept on printing and printing and printing. All right. So we know that this is probably a good way to do it. However, politicians don't want to do that one either, right? So the first one's gone. Second one is just not attainable. The third one is just to keep printing money. So what they can do is they can say, well, you know what we'll do? By the way, the government's doing this now. So you might have seen where the interest rates on long-term bonds have gone up. If you're buying a house or know somebody that's been trying to buy a house, you'll know that interest rates are substantially higher than what they were. And so what the government does, they say, you know what? In order to pay the debt, what we'll do is we'll just print more money. What that happens though is as they just continue to print more and more money, they decrease your purchasing power. So let's say you have $100,000 in retirement. And I have other illustration on this, but you have $100,000 in retirement. 10 years from now, because they kept on printing and printing and printing, you can only buy $50,000 worth of goods. So think of this. For those of you who have gone to a hotel, right? If you've gone to a hotel anytime recently, the price of hotels has doubled since 2020 and today. So what they don't consider when they do these inflation numbers is they don't consider what they really consider is you're going to stay at home, you're going to eat in, you're going to just drive your 3 miles to work and drive 3 miles home. And what they don't consider is if you are doing anything what I would consider fun, like travel, or buy any sort of exotic things, they don't really count that. And so, even though the government is saying that the inflation is 2%, 3%, 4%, in all honesty, it is considerably higher. It's closer to 8, 9%. And you know that if you are the shopper of groceries in your house. And if you're not, ask your spouse because the just common items have gone up. That doesn't include in Florida, especially. And everybody here is in Florida, or everybody should be in Florida. Um, the price of insurance is skyrocketing, HOA fees, there's just everything has gone against you in Florida. Now it's great because you got good weather, or we got good weather. By the way, I live here in Palm Beach. So we're living here, but the cost of things that we use every day has gone up dramatically. Okay. And so this is important for you because if you're on a fixed budget, your Social Security is pretty much fixed. It'll go up according to the government's rules. You may have a pension, which is great if you have a pension. The issue is if your pension is going up, say 2% a year, and inflation is 8%, you're losing 6% a year. And for those of you that have a lot of cash in your bank account, and I know cash feels good, sounds good. What's happening to you though is you're losing about 5% per year. And it's not showing up on your bank statement or your brokerage statement, wherever you may keep your money. It's not showing a negative 5% at the end of the year. But what's happening is that your money now purchases 5% less. And so it's really this is why I've added the slide to my presentation recently because it's a huge issue for when you retire. If you're retiring and you have 30 years of life left, or more, I mean, even if you had 10, this is single-handedly the biggest concern. Okay. So keep that in mind. So as you talk to an advisor, if you come see us, whatever you're doing, you have to assume that you need to be earning 5, 6, 7, 8% per year consistently just to keep pace with inflation. Because Social Security is not going to do that. They artificially are going to keep that number between 2 and 3% historically. And a lot of your pensions now are locked in, and you may not be getting the 5 or 6% that you need there as well. Okay, just keep that in mind. All right. Sorry for that, but I felt it necessary to go through that and let everybody know. All right. Your retirement report card. This is really a report card that we run for folks, and it just gives you a quick little snapshot. It says, okay, when you retire with your full benefits, how much money or income are you going to be getting from all of your health insurance subsidies, maybe your pension amount, your 403(b)s, alimony, whatever the case is. We need to figure out how much income you get, and then we'll figure out what your expenses are, and then we figure out how long your retirement savings are going to last. Now, this is an eye opener for some of you who have not done this. I would suggest that if you don't go see us, make sure that if you're working with somebody, you have them do this for you because this is, by the way, you hired somebody. If you have an advisor, you hired them to do this for you. Make sure that they are giving you everything that I run through here today because it's important for you to make an informed decision. And the only way you're going to make an informed decision is to make sure that somebody has gone through and put all of this together for you. Super important if you're going to be retiring or if you are retiring here this week or next week. but make sure that you know all of this before you step out the door. Okay. So some of the sources of income, Social Security, everybody on here, I haven't talked to anybody lately that's not getting Social Security. So Social Security is a big one. Pension. Let's talk about your pension for a second. So pension is your FRS pension plan, or if you're on the investment plan, you have to create your own pension. I haven't worked with anybody in the last 20 years that is not going to need some of their retirement money to live on. All right. So you're going to get your Social Security. That's great. If you're getting your pension, that's great. If you're creating a pension, we'll talk a little about that. If you're on the investment plan, you have to be careful with that. Personal savings, this is your 403Bs. If you had another house or another job prior to this for 401k, things like that. And other income. Some folks have second homes. Again, part-time work. I've got a couple of folks that work part-time. They just do it for their green fees. They go to Walmart or not really Walmart, but they're just greeters and they just get a couple $100 and they go out and they golf. So there are ways of doing that and stay busy. But that's generally the 99% of what your income is going to be, all right? So that's an important component of that, figuring out how much money you're going to be taking in. And if you don't know, your pension is at FRS, myfrs.com. Your Social Security is going to be SSA.com, SSA.gov, sorry. Medicare, we're going to have another slide on that. So that's a big question mark. And your health insurance. This gets a little disappointing for some of you who thought that they could retire sooner than not, and I'll explain. Health insurance, if you're under 65, you have the right to continue your health insurance through your district, and that's all fine and good. In the past, up until this year, health insurance would run you, and I'm giving you averages because I work with everybody in the state, right? So on average, it would run you about $350, $400 to cover yourself. And that's generally a PPO type plan, about the 350, 400. If you were to do the same thing this year, again, these are just averages, but it's about $800. And that's a 100% increase. So for those folks that retired last year thinking, okay, I'm going to pay my $400. I'm 63 years old. I have 3 years to go. I'll pay my $400 a month. Well, what happened this year? Well, what happened is they went from $400 a month to now $800 a month. And I can share with you, and I'm sure this is something that you wouldn't want happen to you, is that now all of a sudden you've got a fairly sizable bill that's just double, going from $400 to $800. And it's expensive. Health insurance this year has gone up substantially. I don't know if they're going to subsidize it and it'll go down in the future. All I can say is what's happening today. Now, did everybody budget for a 100% increase in that? No. We simply don't know, right? Year to year, who knows what's going to go up. I can share with you, though, having done this the last 20 plus years, we've never had a time where we say, oh, you know what? Your healthcare coverage just got cut in half. That doesn't happen. My point here is that when we're planning budgets or you're working with somebody to plan budgets, be careful with this and make sure you give yourself wiggle room. That wiggle room gets used up very quickly by little things over your budget. Your budget contains probably 30, maybe even 40 different items, healthcare just being one of them. And so all of these things add up. And if you don't give yourself any wiggle room, it can be stressful when you get ready to retire. All right. So health insurance, okay, let me talk about health insurance subsidy first. The health insurance subsidy is $7.50 for every year that you work for the district, and it maxes out at 30 years. So I just talked to a lady this afternoon. She had 50 years in about, um, even though she had 50 years working in the district, she's still only going to get 30 years credit for the health insurance subsidy. All right. So it is capped at 30 years. It is capped at $225 for you. And if you worked 20 years, it's 20 times 750. And if you worked again 30, it's the 225. All right. So everybody gets that added to their pension check. And if you're on the investment plan, the money just gets sent to you. All right. A couple of different premiums. I talked about this. This was given to me by somebody here in Palm Beach, and it was roughly $813 for the HMO PPO. Again, this is if you're under 65. If you're over 65, we'll talk about here in a second. But if you're under 65, you can retire at 60 if you want to. You got 30 years in. Go ahead and retire, but you're going to be on the hook for $800. And that's only to pay for you. In the event that you're covering a spouse, or maybe you have kids or underage children or whatever the case is, the family plan is $1,831. Substantially higher, much, much, much higher. Okay. I know I preaching this to you, but it's super important because it derailed a couple of folks, unfortunately. So we've got because it's just gone up so much so quick. Now, you are at $1,800. By the way, that is just for you to say you have coverage. That doesn't cover your hospital bills, your deductibles, your any of your other out-of-pocket expenses. Doesn't cover that. In addition to that, um, some of them did cover dental, some of them covered vision. But again, that could be also added on here depending on your county, right? Every county is a little different. So that's quite a bit. Medicare. Let's go on to Medicare. So if you're under 65, you need to continue some sort of health care. You can't go without health care. If you are 65 or older, remember, for those of you who are turned 65 and you're still working for the district, you sign up for Part A. Part A is free. The district will send you a little love letter saying, hey, we need you to sign up. They don't want to be on the hook for paying it. A lot of districts are self-governing. They're paying for their own folks. So they're going to want you to go ahead and sign up for Medicare Part A. And there's no downside to it. You just go in, you fill out the form, go to Medicare.gov, fill out the form, submit it. Boom, you get it. You get your card, and it will say Part A on it. When you get Part B, it'll say Part A and B. But Part A, you get the card. And if you're over, again, 65, you get your Medicare supplement, which is great. Or you get Medicare, but you need a supplement. So Medicare will cover 80% of your doctor's bills, but there's still 20% that you are responsible for. So this is the whole point of having a Medicare supplement. You need something to cover the 20% that Medicare does not. Okay. And so you can go one of two ways. You can either do the Medicare supplement, which is the traditional Medicare, or you do the Medicare Advantage, which is kind of an all-in-one. The way I like to describe it is if you're doing a Medicare supplement, it's a la carte. You can get, Plan G, Plan N, Plan M. You also get Part D, and you get a prescription plan. But you are putting it together yourself. You also may get a vision plan and a dental plan, but it's going to be separate from Medicare. Okay. So it's going to be separate. These average, and by the way, they're priced out. Every zip code has its own pricing. Some zip codes are lumped together, but every zip code in the state of Florida has different pricing. If you are leaving Florida, one thing I'll say is Florida is one of um, the highest priced Medicare supplements there are. Different counties obviously are higher than others as well. So if you're leaving the state, you may end up with a little bit of a break. But if you're staying here, think of it as roughly $250. I'm just giving you a rough general across the board in the state of Florida if you're 65. Okay. If you're a smoker, by the way, it goes up. Medicare Advantage is all in one, a la carte. An a la carte. It's think of it as a Chinese buffet. Everything is included: vision, dental. You may even get a gym membership. There's all these little perks. What's the downside? Why do people like the Medicare supplement over the Advantage plan? The main difference is if you decide that you want to go see a doctor and you want to go see any doctor that you want to go see, the Medicare supplement is the way to go. Medicare supplement, as long as they're taking Medicare, you can walk in and say, hey, doc, I want to schedule a meeting, second, third opinion, whatever the case is. As long as they take Medicare supplements or Medicare, you're good to go. The Medicare Advantage plan typically works as a PPO or an HMO. So you have your primary care physician, right? You got your main person that you're going to go see. And then if you want, a hip replacement or any of that sort of stuff, you got to go to a specialist. They have to sign off that you can go see a specialist. By the way, it has to be a specialist in the plan. You're never restricted to go outside of the plan. However, it is very, very expensive to do so. Um, and it was just in the Wall Street Journal. I should actually put that probably up on the slides. There was a gentleman that was on an Advantage plan. He got cancer. He wanted to go see a certain specialist, and it was not in his plan. And he said, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and go back on traditional Medicare. The issue is you have to go through underwriting, means you have to qualify. Between me and you, do you think somebody qualifies if they have cancer to go back on Medicare? The answer is no. Okay. Some of these is restrictive as to whether or not you can go back on traditional Medicare. So he was essentially had to go see the doctors that were in his plan. Remember, you can always go see whoever you want, but it is super expensive. And so that's the big differentiator. And for us and for you and most educators that I work with, it just comes down to budget. Okay. I know a lot of folks say, I want to go see this, I want to see that. When we put your budget together and we know how much income you've got and we know how much is going out, if you can afford it, 99% of people pick the Medicare supplement. That's just the way it works out. You get to pick your own doctor and life is good. You are paying a little more. On the Medicare Advantage plan, if you don't travel a lot and you're going to be here and you're not sick a lot, or your primary care physician. This is the other thing is that primary care physicians, a lot of times when they're new, they'll be on an Advantage plan, but as they develop a client base, historically, a lot of them quit because they get paid less from Advantage plan clients, patients, than they do for Medicare supplements. And that's just the way it works. Okay. Capitalism at its finest. New doctors will take anybody. As they grow their practice, they may be more selective and want to get paid more. And so that is the way it works. All right. Social Security. Let's talk a little about this. Everybody here qualifies for Social Security. Well, I shouldn't say that. I didn't see anybody that did not qualify for Social Security that had signed up for this workshop. Everybody had enough time in service. Social Security, you can start when you're 62. So this is good. However, you are taking an 8% pay cut for every year that you should be waiting. What does that mean? It's like 30% pay cut if you retire at 62 or start your Social Security at 62 versus your full retirement age. And by and large, most everybody here is at 67. Um, and so you get paid 8% per year that you wait all the way up until age 70. At age 70, you get 25% more. So it's a fairly big swing. And if you have longevity in your family, then sometimes it's better for you to wait. By the way, mathematically, it's always better for you to wait until age 70, mathematically. And that's just the way it works. However, mathematically doesn't pertain to everybody, just pertains to a big group. So generally, we take a look at this and we say, okay, if you are single and you're going to be retiring and you're under age 65, and you're counting on Social Security and some sort of pension benefit, this always just we just start it, right? I mean, you have to have the money unless you're going to continue to work another year. So that is why we look at your Social Security. And if you are married, we need to consider spousal benefits, or who should file first, who should file second. We have software that actually plots that out, which does a great job of doing this. So, should you file first? Should your spouse file first? Should you have your spouse file and you wait until 70? It does the math, and from that, you can make a decision, right? Again, it comes down to knowing what the numbers are and making a decision with information or, Um, coordinating the benefits and all this. Renee, I see you just raise your hand. If you want, just pop the question in either the chat or Q&A, and I'll cover that here at the end. Okay. Um, Spousal benefits. Also, if you're a widower, you could get your benefits at age 60. You don't have to wait. There's a lot of nuances with Social Security. I have a whole other 1 hour workshop just on Social Security. Feel free to go ahead and view those. You'll get the link to our YouTube page. And I used to have a course for all of this, but because of YouTube so easy to use, I just have everything up on the YouTube page and you can just follow along. And if anything, you can just, Medicare, it's a 1 hour workshop. Social Security is 1 hour. How do you convert a pension or FRS money investment plan into a pension, all that kind of stuff. So that's where we keep kind of the ancillary. What you're getting today is just kind of the backbone, and we keep all of the deep dives into all of the material on our YouTube page. All right, I probably should have covered that earlier. Some of the retirement savings. Now, you all know that you've have spent the last 20, 30, 40, some of you 50 years, what we consider climbing the mountain. In other words, you've been saving. You've been not getting Starbucks every day, not knocking Starbucks. I get Starbucks too, but you know what I mean? You put your kids through school, whatever the case is, you have been saving for the last 40, 50 years. All right. Now you're at the top of the mountain for those of you who are getting ready to retire. And essentially, somebody leans over and says, here's a pair of skis. Now you got to ski down. You have spent 40 years trying to figure out how to save or keep your budget under a certain amount. It's completely different mindset, completely different skill set getting down the mountain and figuring out, okay, now you've amassed whatever savings you have. How do you now convert what you've saved into income? And this is what we talk about. And this is another reason why, and I know we always have some do-it-yourselfers. So you have to think about this, all right? There's a couple of ways that you can do this. At the end of this workshop, I'll go through kind of a list of what's available. By the way, for those of you who are watching this live, if you watch this as a replay, you're not going to get the end because I talk about specifics as far as CD rates and structure notes and some of the other things. They don't allow me to keep that up on the replays because it's pertinent to today. And again, if somebody watches it down the road, it may not be pertinent, and so the attorneys are quick to point out that compliance and all those, you can't keep anything up on there long term. Anyhow, I can talk about what products are available. I just can't talk about different rates, except today. The three tax buckets, you have a tax deferred. This is all the money you have in your 403Bs, your pension payments, anything that you're getting in that you're having to pay tax on it at the end of the year. I'm sorry, anything that is your IRAs, your pension, not really payments, but the amount that if you're in drop that's going into your account, that's all deferred, right? The tax deferred means anything that you have yet to pay taxes on. So IRAs, 401ks, 403Bs, pension plans, Bancor, for those of you who have sick days and some of you that had vacation days that have converted. By the way, I work with Bancor. Taxable accounts are your pensions, your individual brokerage account, joint accounts, savings, CDs, things like that. That gets taxed differently, and then you're tax free. So the interesting thing about the tax free is your Roth accounts. This single-handedly is the best account that you could be using. I don't know why my nose is itching. Um, So it is the best single account. Reason being, A, you don't pay the taxes on it as long as you've had it for 5 years, and the interest is tax-free. Okay, there is one caveat to that. You have to own a Roth account for 5 years. Two is if you ever leave money to somebody and it's in a Roth account, they don't have to pay the taxes on it either. Three is you don't have to make required minimum distributions, which is great. That's a good way to save money in retirement. That's one of the strategies. Damien, yes, I see you raise your hand. I'll take questions there at the end. Your health savings accounts are also, tax-free, municipal bonds. But the other thing with the Roth account is it could potentially save you money on paying tax on your Social Security as well. Social Security has a weird way of the way they tax it, and you could, in theory, lower the amount you have to pay on taxes on your Social Security. And this comes into play not necessarily for the folks that are on the pension plan, but if you're on the investment plan, there is a very good chance that you can get under those thresholds and not pay any taxes on your Social Security. All right. So, super important. You could be taking $100,000 a year out of a Roth account, Roth IRA, or Roth 403B, or Roth 403B, whatever you want. As long as the money is coming out of a Roth and you've had it for 5 years, completely tax free. And if that is your only source of income, you pay zero on your Social Security. So this is why it's important. This is an important strategy that we use for clients. Right? Um, let's talk a little bit about the deductions. I don't want to get too far in the weeds with the tax stuff, but just so you know, this year, if you're over 65, your first 47,000 and married, 65 or older and married, filed jointly. I got to be specific with this. Your first $47,500 is tax free. Okay, that is your standard deduction. I don't know any teachers that itemize deductions anymore. At one point, there's a handful, but by and large, you're not going to have deductions over, $47,000. It's just not going to happen. And if you're single filer, it's 24,000. So why do I point this out? I point this out because when Trump talked about giving everybody their Social Security and not paying tax on Social Security, this is how he did it. He allowed seniors that are 65 and older a special deduction of $6,000 per person. Married, you get 12. So you get $12,000 deduction. This puts you under the thresholds for where you would typically pay taxes on your Social Security. It sunsets in 2028. Okay. So you've got 2 more years to be able to take advantage of this, and then it goes away. And whether or not they extend it, who knows? Who knows? With the political environment the way it is, nobody's going to know. All right, so that's how that works. So let's talk a little about the tax reduction. And if you've got questions, I saw a couple folks pop up questions. Just go ahead and put those in the Q&A. I'll more than happy to address those here in a few minutes. All right. Tax reduction. One of the things that we try to help everybody with is their taxes. Okay. We don't do taxes. We're not tax preparers, but we do help folks with tax as far as preparation for it, right? So think of this. If you go in and you go to a restaurant and you order all your meal, they bring you out at the end of the night. They're going to bring out what? A receipt, right? The receipt shows everything that you've ordered for your dinner. And then you go ahead and you pay the receipt. What we try to do is before you get to April 15th, 17th, whatever date they're going to come out with this year, we want you to go ahead and have strategies in place to help lower your taxes before the end of the year. By the time the end of the year comes, you essentially are taking your bills, your tax statements, and you're taking them to your accountant and you're giving them to your accountant. He's saying, okay, that'll be 300, 400, whatever your accountant's charging. You go, okay, let me put this down for you. Can you make any changes at that point? No, the tax year is done. That was last year's business. You're just truing up your account. So what we try to do is help you put strategies in place that will help lower your taxes. So when you go see your person, or if you're doing it yourself, or TurboTax, or whoever it is, you say, okay, well, I'm glad I had this type of account because it was able to help me save X number of dollars, right? Just a little bit of planning helps you reduce your taxes. And you might say, well, why doesn't anybody talk to us about, tax planning or any of this sort of thing? Most CPAs that I work with, unless you have over $1 million, they're not going to spend a bunch of time with you. They're there to get their $300. They may see you for a half an hour, maybe an hour. If they sat down with every client and spent 2, 3 hours going through their work or their investments, saying, "Oh, well, you should use this account. You should actually be rolling money over here. Oh, why don't you take advantage of qualified accounts where you pay less in taxes?" All this kind of stuff falls on our shoulders, and our meaning financial advisors. However, if your financial advisor is working for a big firm, by the way, I work for a big firm, UBS. So we were told you do not mention taxes. Taxes are for the CPA. So what happens is this gray area between advisors like myself and accountants, which, unless you have a lot of money, they're not going to talk to you about all this sort of thing. And so that's why I bridge the gap, or that's why my practice has a lot of the tax planning involved, because I know most educators aren't in the million, 2 million, 3 million. I mean, there are a few, there's a handful, but you could take the same strategies and use the same exact strategies to help you. All right. So that's why it's important, I think, for again, if you're seeing somebody, make sure that ask them about Roth accounts. Ask them about the next section here, which is going to be qualified dividends. All right. So ordinary income tax brackets, these are the brackets. Everybody knows this. When you go file your taxes at the end of the year, this is married file jointly, and these are the tax brackets, right? So it goes from 10 to 37%. However, remember we on the prior slide we said, okay, your first $47,500 is tax free. That means that until you hit that threshold, you're not paying any income. So you married file jointly over 65, right? The number's a little lower by 12,000 if you don't, a little more than 12,000. But you get my point, is that you get a certain amount of it tax free, and then you start paying tax on it. All right. There is another way, another tax code, another tax bracket. And because you have not been retired, or because you aren't or were not in the mindset of needing money out of your investments, you're trying to grow them, remember? So you probably aren't aware of this, or if you are, maybe you heard it as far as like, okay, well, I kind of knew maybe this happened or it was around, but I really wasn't using it, because there's no reason why you would use this if you're not wanting income out of your accounts, right? And it's called the long-term capital gains, or qualified dividends. And this is important because, as you can see here, what is the tax rate your if the money you're getting out of your investments qualifies, all right? It has to qualify, and I'll talk a little about what qualified dividends are. But if it qualifies for this, what is this first tax rate? Zero. And if you're married, filed jointly, how much do you need to earn before you start paying taxes on it? $96,000. By the way, this isn't me saying it. This is the IRS code. And again, most people don't get this because they have simply not needed any money out of their accounts. But this is a way to get it tax advantage. I won't say tax free, because then if you go over the 96,000, you're at 15. By the way, if you're at $96,000, you're between 10 and 22% if you're married, and you get it as ordinary income. Think of CDs, things like that. You would be paying 10 to 22%, whereas here you're paying zero. Now, we won't really work with the 20% because that's over 600,000. Most folks that we work with aren't there. All right. So, but the 15,000, let's say you're at 150,000. You're married, filed jointly. You both are getting pensions. So you might be in the 130 to 150,000. Well, now if you're getting income from qualified accounts or qualified dividends, you're paying 15%, whereas you could be paying 22 to 35. So you see, this helps you out quite a bit. It could save you quite a bit in money in taxes, and we have a whole sheet that we put together. Um, Now, if you add your 47,000 and change, you can see you're in the 0% all the way up to 144,000 if you're married and filed jointly and over 65. So again, commonly overlooked, but it's something that we absolutely take a look at for every single client because we want to make sure that if we are getting you income out of your investments, we want to make sure they're tax advantaged. All right. And so this slide just re-illustrates what I talked about, between the um, ordinary income. Again, think of that as your CDs and you know dividends that are not qualified. Dividends from mutual funds can sometimes not be here. ETFs. There's a whole litany of things that could trip you up here. All right. And what you'll see on your statements is it will say qualified dividend, it'll say the name of the company, and qualified type. And if it is not qualified, meaning you pay ordinary income or pay on the different tax rates, it'll say cash dividend. And typically it's going to be a lot of your mutual funds, right? So again, there's a difference. We're going to help you with that, or at least make a note to figure out if you are, or if you do have investments, are they qualified or are they cash? Because it can mean the difference between paying taxes on it and not. Okay. Couple of ways you can save. Now, this is a couple of the practical ways that you can this year look at what you have and lower your taxes potentially next April 15th. All right. First thing is Roth conversions. Roth conversion is when you take money out of your IRA. Think of it, or for you, or most of you, it'll be 403Bs. Also, your investment pension or investment plan money. So you may want to convert some of that into Roth to where you don't pay taxes in the future. There's a whole mathematic way we look at this, but again, once you put it into the Roth account, you no longer have to pay taxes on it. And as long as you have it for 5 or more years, you don't pay any tax on the income as well. Qualified dividends, I showed you to where depending on what type of dividend it is and what classification it is, you could be getting those at a reduced tax rate. And tax loss harvesting. So I know for the do-it-yourselfers, sometimes this gets overlooked, but tax loss harvesting is simply when you have something that's gone down, you can sell it and replace it, and it can offset some of the gains that you've had on other accounts. And again, I'm not going to get too far into the tax side of things, but this is certainly a way that you could reduce your taxes as well. So if you've got a big loss in one of your stocks and you got big gains in one of your stocks, you could sell one to offset the gains and sell the other one and level it out. There is a holding period and a waiting period and all that sort of stuff. So there is some more that goes into that, but it can save you quite a bit of money at the end of the year. All right, so let's talk a little about the bonus because I know we're getting short on time. So if you get a lump sum, which a lot of you do, if you're getting your drop account as a lump sum, your investment account or your investment payments are the investment plan is going to be a lump sum. By the way, you get a small fraction of it the month that you retire or a month after you retire. You get the other in 3 months prior after that. So don't think that if you're on the investment plan, you're getting all your money at once. That is not how that works. Be careful of that. I've had plenty of people run into problems. Um, and so you've got a couple of ways that you can get money. Remember, you've climbed the mountain. Now all of a sudden you've got to figure out, okay, you've got whatever nest egg you've got. How does it or how can you convert that into cash? A couple of different ways. You can put it in the bank and just get money off a money market. Money markets are not earning the 5 to 6% that you need. Okay. So yes, you can use it as a temporary hold of money. And you need some cash in order to make sure there's emergency. We live in Florida. There's always a hurricane around the corner somewhere. So you want to be careful of putting too much in that. Okay, because you're working backward. Again, think of this as whatever that target number is, which I would say the target for you should be at least 6%. You got to figure out how can you get income, but grow it by more than 6%. Again, this is kind of the magic number. By the way, this gets edited out of the replay. So you've got money markets, you've got CDs. CDs right now, 2, 3 years out, are right around 4%. And it feels good to have a bunch of money in CDs and in cash and in money markets. I get it. Plenty of clients do that. However, we talked about this. You got to be careful with that. It feels good. And I know we don't like putting money in things that we are unfamiliar with. A lot of folks have just been saving money. It's been invested, but you haven't really seen it invested because it's been growing in a 403(b) or an annuity or somewhere. And you just kind of haven't watched it. You know it's growing, but you haven't really watched it. So we got to figure that out. You have structured notes. Structured notes are similar to like a dividend paying stock. It is based on a single stock, and the ranges anywhere from 7% to 15% interest that pays monthly. You have to go through somebody in order to find these. They aren't available to the general public. So that's one of the things that we use. Um, Dividend paying stocks that are qualified. Remember the qualification part. You have to earn them for or own them for a certain period of time. Those are great because it can help reduce your taxes. And certainly annuities for those who like annuities. Those can actually be beneficial if you're taking out a certain amount over time. The annuity won't go down as long as it's a fixed annuity. Some of the variable annuities you got to be careful with because even though they have a guarantee, the fees in most variable annuities are kind of cost prohibitive. Um, and that's really kind of what you have to work with. All right. You can use government bonds. Government bonds right now are paying again around the 4%, 3.5%, 4%. Is that 6%? No. So you have to be careful with that and balance it all out and make sure that you're taking a certain amount of income over time. All right. Um, all right, I think I covered that well enough. All right, so we talked a little about the lump sum investing, dollar cost averaging. So by the way, so let's say you do get your investment plan, your pension, investment pension, and let's say it's $300,000. What do you need to do is first off, do not throw it all in the market at all at one time. Okay, that is a surefire way to pick the worst day to do that. All right, Murphy's Law is definitely in the cards when it comes to this. You want to dollar cost average it. Take it over a course of a year or whatever the case is, but you want to invest it, 25%, 25% over the course of a year, maybe 10% for every month. But you don't want to put it all in the market all at once. It can work for you, but a lot of times it doesn't work for you. So think of 2008. If you were to put all of your money that you just got, say you're 300, 400, $500,000 in the investment plan, you put it in the market 2008 thinking things are good. Things were not good. Take it from me, I was in the business. Things were not good. And for those of you who had money in the market, you know it wasn't good. So you want to space it out over time. By the way, if you had spaced it out over time, you would have been fine. But you certainly don't want to put it all in at once, right? We talked a little about this, the workbook. The workbook again has it all broken down. There's about 12, 13 different things in there. Different strategies on how to save money, getting yourself organized for retirement. talking a little about Medicare. We talked about some of the big things today. There are a few other little things that certainly could help you. And I think from here, let's go ahead over and jump on the questions. Okay, so by the way, if you do want to set up a time with us, you're more than welcome to do that. The elephant in the room is, yeah, how do we put on this every week? We put this on to get clients, all right? So, hey, I hope that didn't shock anybody, but we do this almost every week. I have anywhere from 20 people up to 100 people every week. There's 50,000 folks in FRS of retirement age, age 60 or 58 and up. And so we provide this workbook. And again, everybody's going to get that for free. And if you come see us, we're going to put kind of a plan together. Maybe you need just the report card to see how you're doing. Maybe you say, you know what, I'm thinking of retiring. Do I have enough money? We get that question quite a bit. Some people say, you know what, I'm in drop. I put in my 3 years. I was going to work five or I was going to work eight. Can I retire? Do I have enough money? If you have those questions, then what we do as far as putting a plan together, it just solves that question. And then by the way, if you're like, well, I'm going to retire 3 years from now, and I just want to see where I'm at, we could do that too. Right? This is a free service. Nobody pays for that. We just put everything together for you. And it says, geez, I've had lots of people just say, you know what? After they put it together, they say, oh, well, I'm in pretty good shape. Yeah, you're in great shape. You could retire now if you wanted to. Well, I don't know. Let me get back to you in a week. They call me in a week and say, you know what? We thought about it. We're going to go ahead and retire. So, or conversely, if your budget is super tight and um, if your budget's going to be tight, you might say, well, I'm going to have to work another year or another 2 years until I'm 65. By the way, the sweet spot's 65. So if you only because of that one thing with the insurance, all right? If you have somebody else and you're on somebody else's insurance and it's $100 a month, that isn't going to affect your budget much. But I can assure you, $1,800 is going to affect your budget substantially. All right, I get on those rants. Remember, I said at the beginning I could talk for 2 hours. Um, oh, somebody said that the microphone's off. So this whole time I've been talking and well, I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. It says that it's working. All right, well, maybe I was muted this whole time and everybody was on here. Oh, okay, well, good. I'm glad people are saying they could hear me. I don't look at the questions. That would have really sucked. If I just talked for an hour and all of you were sitting there trying to do lip reading. That would have been great. It would have been a little embarrassing, but that's funny. All right. So, any questions about any of this? I'm glad. Yes, I'm glad everybody said they could hear me. Maybe I wasn't talking loud enough earlier. Any questions about any of the retirement stuff? The workbook is great. Again, send that out to anybody that is thinking of retiring. This is the 2026 version. Every year I come out with a new version because things change as far as how much you're going to pay. And it is for everybody in the state. Okay. It's not necessarily for anybody that's just here in Palm Beach County. You could be in Tallahassee, you could be in the Keys. That's why I don't have specific numbers in here for just Palm Beach County. I don't, I have information on all the other counties, so I wouldn't want to put things in here that were wrong. And anyhow, I appreciate everybody's help. Congratulations again for any of you that are retiring this year. Feel free to take advantage of some of the free resources we have. You'll get links to everything that we have to offer. And that's it. If you're retiring this year and we don't see you again, have fun, and hopefully everybody enjoys their summer. I will have a couple of courses throughout the summer, or just randomly. I'll put those out, but by and large, we are pretty much going to wrap up 2020. Well, I'll say 2026, but we'll be back again in August. So again, thanks everybody for attending, and if you have any questions, reach out. Bye now.